Nicole Kidman has filed for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years of marriage. The court papers show the actress will remain the primary caregiver of the couple's teenage daughter.
Stop everything! Did you see the moment America's sweetheart made the country's bad boy walk out? The talk show lights just witnessed a celebrity collision of epic proportions. First up, we have country music's golden outlaw, Keith Urban. The guy who magically turns his existential dust into chart-topping anthems and angst into Grammy bait. Opposite him, the one and only Kelly Clarkson, America's authenticity queen whose voice has dragged millions through their darkest breakups. It was meant to be a fluffy PR chat. Just another pit stop on Keith's endless promo tour. All fake smiles and applause. But oh, did that day take a dangerous turn. Kelly, the troublemaker, literally leaned in and dropped a bomb of a question. Sweetly poisonous, of course, that sliced right through decades of his carefully constructed fame. She asked the question everyone whispers. Keith, are you even country anymore? The silence was deafening. That fall warmth instantly shattered, revealing the ghosts of critics past, the purists who accused him of selling his soul. Then, honey, the air went nuclear. Words became flames, and before we knew it, a simple interview exploded into an ego war of misguided intentions. As Keith Urban stood up and walked off that stage, the world watched a wound get ripped wide open for the cameras. Remember this, the real music drama isn't on the charts. It's the uncomfortable truth exposed in silence, right where the entire world can watch it bleed. Long before the bright lights, before the shiny awards, before that live TV meltdown, there was just a barefoot kid in Caboolture, Queensland, wide-eyed and already obsessed with guitar strings. Keith Lionel Urban might have been born in New Zealand in October 1967, but his family quickly shipped off to Australia, where life was too small for his grand country dreams. His dad, Robert, was a trucker who loved music but also loved the bottle. His mom, Marianne, worked non-stop just to put food on their humble table. Their house was a mess of uncertainty, and only the crackling sound of Hank Williams could temporarily bring light to their dark lives. The first guitar Keith Urban ever touched was a crusty hand-me-down from a pawn shop. Strings rusted, body cracked, but to him, it was the only escape from his messy home life. He'd sit there night after night, fingers literally bleeding, hyper-focusing on dreams of Nashville, a city he only knew from cheap magazines. And listen up, because this is the tea. Even as a kid, poor Keith was the ultimate target. His schoolmates mocked his odd accent, his wild hair, and his weird obsession with us cowboy music. Even his teachers said he was wasting his time on fantasy. When his parents' fights got loud, he'd bail, stare at the stars, and whisper a promise. One day they'll all hear me. Then at 9, his dad threw him into local talent shows. The crowds would literally laugh at the tiny toddler with a giant guitar. But then he'd play, and suddenly, silence. It was awkward awe. But behind that child prodigy shine was a kid desperately seeking a place to belong, feeling like a total outsider. He was too country for the pop kids, too pop for the country purists, and way too Australian for America. This extreme displacement carved a deep, scaring complex into his soul. As he grew up, that wound got worse. Country music is America's heartbeat, and he was the hot foreigner trying to steal the rhythm. He didn't just want hits, he wanted validation. Every note was a loud, crying plea to belong. So, when Kelly Clarkson, decades later, delivered that stare down and questioned his authenticity, she wasn't asking about a song. She was unwittingly ripping open that childhood scar. It was the same old fear, the terrifying thought of never being good enough, never being country enough. This shadow followed him through every rejection and every sleepless tour night. He may be Keith Urban, the Grammy winner, but he started as a nobody who used a guitar as his only savior. That road from the dusty back alleys of Caboolture to the neon signs of Nashville wasn't golden. It was pure warfare, fueled by hunger, rejection, and sheer faith. So get this juicy detail. In his early 20s, Keith literally ditched Australia. He showed up in Nashville with his guitar, 3 shirts, and absolutely zero chill. He was just a dreamer with an accent so thick people just smiled and ghosted him. Nashville, the city that chews up talent and spits out debt, should have swallowed him whole. But Keith Urban wasn't having it. He was slogging it out in dive bars where no one cared, serenading drunks, and cutting demos that only ever collected dust. Every single rejection was like a nail being driven straight into his rock star chest. He was sleeping in his car, staring at the dashboard, and muttering the only promise that mattered. "I'm not leaving until they scream my name." The struggle was savage. Labels all said the same thing. His sound was a mess. Too pop for country, too country for pop. He was the ultimate outsider, trying to force a change on a genre that hates new ideas. But here's the plot twist. Keith's secret weapon was his own pain, and he was fluent in the language of persistence. He studied the legends not to copy them, but to be better than them. He took crappy gigs, played backup, anything to just breathe the air of fame. And then, finally, in 1999, the unthinkable happened. His first real album started getting radio play, and, but for the grace of God, shot to #1 on the Billboard country charts. Just like that, the boy who didn't belong was suddenly the one writing the rules. Fame didn't hit him with a lightning bolt. It slid in slowly, hidden behind the roar of the crowds. The industry that once gave Keith Urban the cold shoulder was now bowing down, calling him a visionary and the new king of country's evolution. But trust me, Keith knew the receipts. Behind every fake smile and bright spotlight was a night spent stuck to a hotel ceiling, wondering if the sellout hustle was worth the heartache. His whole empire is built on scars. And honey, those scars are louder than his guitar riffs. Then came the crossover. Early in his rise, he met Kelly Clarkson fresh off her American Idol crowning. Their respect was real. They shared stages and giggles, 2 fighters from opposite worlds, both obsessed with authenticity. They admired the freedom in each other. But you know time is a beast. Their paths divided. Kelly became the voice of raw, pop culture truth, while Keith became the face of modern country, stuck between purity and cash. When they finally met again on the Kelly Clarkson Show, it wasn't a fun reunion. It was history, unresolved beef, and years of bottled-up shame disguised as charm. Kelly was the fearless new guard, asking what others didn't. Keith was the old guard, still hurting from being called not enough. Before Kelly even asked that fatal question, a fire lit up inside him, the same flame that drove him out of Australia. He built his entire life to prove his worth. What a shame when someone questions the very thing you died to build. Now, as the ultimate A-list symbol, his name shimmers across award shows, and his face graces billboards next to his wife, Nicole Kidman, Hollywood's most glamorous queen. Together, Keith and Nicole were the ultimate Hollywood fantasy. Love, talent, beauty, and bank accounts all woven into one exclusive, golden image. But we know the truth. Perfection is just a weighty mask. Honey, Keith's music was everywhere. His anticipated songs like Somebody Like You and Blue Ain't Your Color were instant breakup anthems. He wasn't just singing about pain. He was monetizing the healing process. Yet, for every stan who loved his pop makeover, there was a purist hater whispering he'd sold out country music. "He's going pop!" they screamed. "He's chasing the radio cash, not the authentic road dust." These whispers became his shadow, haunting every single interview. That word, authenticity, which has scarred him since childhood, started twisting like a sharp knife again. For the critics, you can't be rich and real at the same time. Keith believed that logic was absolute toxicity. Meanwhile, Kelly Clarkson's star was burning brighter than ever. She escaped the American Idol curse to become pop's most respected, fearless, and unapologetically real voice. Fans love her because she never pretends. When NBC handed her the Kelly Clarkson Show, everyone was hyped. It wasn't a talk show. It was a safe space for vulnerability, which became her armor. When Keith agreed to the guest spot, it should have been a glittering celebration, two industry survivors sharing war stories. But that stage hit a wicked imbalance. Kelly represents the new generation that demands artists air all their dirty laundry. Keith represents the old school, where the artist's craft should speak for itself. Their whole philosophy was basically destined to crash and burn. On the fateful interview day, the studio was glowing. Keith arrived with his standard, polished smile. Kelly greeted him with that infectious, homegirl laugh. The audience was eating it up. Everything looked perfect, but honey, perfection is the most fragile thing. And then Kelly dropped the question. There's been talk about authenticity in country music lately. Who have strayed too far from the genre's roots? Kelly Clarkson asked, and just like that, the room temperature plummeted to sub-zero. Keith Urban froze. His famous smile died. His fingers started tapping a nervous rhythm on the chair. For him, this wasn't journalism. It was a full-scale ambush. It was every critic's sneer and every decade of doubt finally spitting in his face. He fired back, calm, but with a razor-sharp edge. That's quite a loaded question, isn't it, Kelly? What are you really digging for here? The air was thick enough to cut. Kelly, clueless about the nerve she'd just hit, kept pushing. She thought she was inviting a conversation, but he felt like he was being publicly cross-examined. The more she talked, the wider his old wound opened, and beneath the polite fake smiles, decades of fury started to ignite. Because let's be real, fame doesn't erase your insecurities, it just hands them a megaphone. As their words turned to shots fired on national television, the audience wasn't watching a simple argument. They were witnessing two titans collide. The bold, unfiltered truth of the new generation against the aging, bruised pride of the old guard. Kelly demanded truth and Keith demanded respect. Yet neither could see. They were fighting for the same thing: validation. Behind the scenes, the producers were freaking out, the control room buzzing with panic. Their light-hearted chat was now a full-blown duel. For Kelly, it was a simple chat about art. For Keith, it was everything. His legitimacy, his career, his whole damn right to exist. When the cameras finally stopped, the applause was terrible and awkward. The warmth had evaporated, replaced by a chilling misunderstanding. But listen up. That single interview is still rumbling through Hollywood and Nashville, fueling the debate about ego and authenticity. Fame gave them heights, but that stage exposed their true, fragile humanity. The little Aussie boy is now burning under a new sky, one made of gossip, expectations, and questions that just cut too deep. Breaking news. The announcement hit Hollywood like a shockwave, so fast it felt like a typo. Guess what? Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman are donezo after 11 years. The words were absolutely impossible, like reading an obituary for the perfect, gold-plated dream we all bought into. Hollywood's ultimate power couple instantly vaporized. It was Tom who filed, and naturally the tea was spilled. Was it Scientology, rampant jealousy, infidelity, or just sheer exhaustion? But the real gossip, of course, was boring. They simply hit their gravity limits. Two planets orbiting too close are always going to crash. Nicole was literally filming the hours when she got the news. In one scene, she had to cry, and honey, she didn't need acting coaches. The tears came like a public confession. The crew looked away, giving her space for a grief that was too real for the movies. Later, she scored an Oscar for it, but that statue couldn't possibly cover the emotional damage. Tom, he went full robot. He showed up to interviews with a mechanical, chilly smile, only warming up when the questions weren't about her. When asked how he was, he replied, "I'm fine," which is code for "I am drowning." Behind that perfect posture was a man watching the collapse of the one thing his money and stunts couldn't fix: love. The tabloids, like vultures, descended to feast on her heartbreak and his stone-cold silence. They dug for villain origin stories. His church defended him. Her friends defended her. The world picked sides in a war. Neither of them wanted to fight. Nicole told her inner circle, he was the love of my life. Tom said absolutely nothing. He taught us all that silence can be the ultimate weapon. Shield and confession. Fast forward, years later, Nicole did the unthinkable and swapped one megastar for another, finding a gentler rhythm with Keith Urban. Finally, peace, right? Wrong. Decades passed. And then the news broke again. Oh my God! Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban are headed for divorce. The cycle was complete. History repeated itself with new celebrity names. And guess who was watching? Tom Cruise, of course. Insiders swore he felt vindictive, telling friends that karma came full circle. We all gasped. Could the man who once wept over her really be celebrating her agony? While tabloids live for revenge, sources close to Tom disagreed, remembering how he once looked at her like she was his sunlight. Maybe he meant karma as recognition, realizing that all love, even the epic kind, ultimately crashes and burns. Tom's A-list movies always have happy endings, but reality is brutal. It lets you feel the impact. They say he still has their old love letters. In one, she called him my thunderstorm, and he replied, "You are the calm after every war." Those words are so different now, decades later. They both moved on, but their ghost story is stuck on replay at every award show. When Nicole talks about forgiveness, she looks sad. When Tom talks love, he clams up. His life is now a non-stop blur of planes, explosions, and rooftop runs. The man who couldn't hold his wife now holds on to pure, adrenaline-fueled speed. Motion is his medicine, because memory stinks. He catches glimpses of her ghost on strangers. A laugh, a hand, a faint memory scent, and just walks on. But get this secret scene. After the divorce was finalized, Nicole went back to their empty house. She stood in the doorway, touching the frame where their wedding photo used to hang. The air still held a faint trace of his cologne. She whispered something no one heard, probably a dramatic goodbye to the memories, and in another room, Tom Cruise stared at the same ghost of a photo, doing the same. Tragedy isn't about evil villains. It's about two people who loved so hard they self-destructed, not because they stopped caring, but because they cared way too much. Tom was the guy who could defy movie gravity, but not celebrity destiny. Nicole was the woman who thought love could fix anything. Maybe in some other universe, they're still running away together, laughing at this mess. But in this universe, they became each other's heartbreaking mirror, proving that even legends shatter where the heart is weakest. Meanwhile, back at the studio, the lights dimmed, and the applause sign stayed off. That Kelly versus Keith confrontation lingers like a wicked bruise. It was over, but not really. The cameras stopped, but the drama is raging in the headlines and in their A-list hearts. Keith Urban didn't release a stupid statement. He didn't have to. His silence is the loudest headline, but behind that silence is something juicier than mere anger. Insiders say Keith was shaken not by Kelly's questions, but by what they meant. He's faced these accusations for years, but under those bright lights, the question wasn't about country music. It was about his entire identity. For decades, he's been the golden boy who made country music sexy with clean guitars and glossy production. He was a barrier breaker, but every chart topper came with a chorus calling him a sellout. That word is his literal curse. It's not about money, it's about belonging. He built his whole life on the idea that music has no borders. But in the industry he came from, purity is a religion, and innovation is absolute sin. Get ready for the aftermath. People, Kelly's question, which she thought was sweet and innocent, literally tore open Keith's oldest scar. What spilled out wasn't his famous arrogance. It was pure, raw exhaustion. The fatigue of a man whose entire career is just one long defensive argument. Sources say Keith didn't sleep that night. He sat alone strumming the same haunting, lyricless mess of a melody, a total vibe of regret and reflection. Meanwhile, Kelly Clarkson stayed back after the crew ditched her. She sat in her empty studio, replaying the disaster word for word. She didn't mean to be the villain, okay? She built her brand on being the real girl next door, not the host who sets traps. But that day, she finally realized the gospel truth. The truth hurts, even when it's spoken with zero malice. She confessed to a friend later, "I think I poked a wound I didn't understand." Kelly, who also came from poverty and fights, turned her own pain into pure power. She speaks without fear, thinking she was just having an honest conversation. She missed the terrified boy behind Keith's eyes. For him, authenticity isn't a catchphrase. It's a lifelong live TV bleeding wound. In the weeks that followed, they both faked it. Keith returned to the road, guitar slung, fake smile locked. But if you looked closely, you could see the new reflection in his eyes. Not defeat, but a quiet, creepy reckoning. Neither of them bothered to apologize. Why? Because some scandals don't end with apologies. They end with a scary kind of understanding. When Keith hit the stage again, he paused before the encore. The crowd roared, and he softly whispered into the mic, "It's funny how a song can still save you, even when the world is watching you fall." Kelly, meanwhile, kept her laughter going, but now when a guest hesitates, she throws them a lifeline. "Take your time. I get it." That moment with Keith taught her what no award could. That even the toughest voices shake when the truth hits. In the end, their clash isn't just scandal. It's the gossip mirror held up to everyone who has to defend their life choices. Keith Urban and Kelly Clarkson just reminded us that authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about the courage to falter, to speak, and to still sing when the lights fade. If this drama moved you, share this story. Remember, authenticity isn't something you prove to the haters. It's something you live for yourself.